And now, cutting through your typical media nonsense and offering you a rational and unbiased perspective on current events and life in Tampa Bay. He's a successful entrepreneur, published author, top listing agent, a real estate and finance expert that goes to bat for you every day as a consumer advocate. Your host and the consumer quarterback, Brandon Rhymes.
And welcome to the Consumer Quarterback Show, all about helping you win in any marketplace. And we'd love to help you win in your real estate deals. As you know, this is the Consumer Quarterback Show. I'm your host, Brandon Rhymes, Consumer Quarterback Show Platinum MVP team at Keller Williams Realty. We like to feature our real estate listings on the show, and we help our sellers profit more and sell faster utilizing our innovations with radio, TV, and internet marketing. We got a hot property listing here at 4823 Ebbtide Lane. This is a penthouse in Port Richey area, Gulf of Mexico views on the river with an on-site community pool. This is unit number 405 on Ebbtide Lane. Beautiful property here with covered parking. You've got about 1,100 square feet. Currently set up as a one-bedroom, could easily be converted back to a two-bedroom property just by adding a couple of walls. And you've got two bathrooms as well, your own private penthouse suite available at 4823 Ebbtide Lane, unit number 405 in Port Richey. Beautiful waterfront listing from the Platinum MVP team at Keller Williams Realty. You can see all of our listings at platinummvpteam.kw.com.
This is God's country.
And we give a shout out to our sponsors here for the program, Replenish IV Solutions, the science of nutritional balance. Say hello to Stephen and Lisa Gunnan over at Replenish IV Solutions. It's a safe and effective way to boost your body's immunity. And I love it. I go in once a month at least, and the nurse hooks me up with the vitamin infusion drip directly into my bloodstream, pumping in all the good stuff. And you can do that too. They can come to your home or office, or they have multiple Bay Area locations. Replenish IV Solutions, longtime friends of the Consumer Quarterback Show. All right, coming up on the program, we've got Amanda Makki. She's a candidate for U.S. Congress District 13 right here in Tampa Bay. And we are going to be kicking off with Jared Parker here. Welcome in, Jared.
Thank you.
Economic consultant and a regional economic consulting group is your company, and a wealth of information, a big history, and of course in the movie industry, and also development in terms of affordable housing. A lot of cool stuff to talk about.
Yep.
Yeah, man. So let's jump into it. So let's start off. So I was introduced through Captain Will Smith, Captain Will Smith, author of Falling from the Sky and Ditches to Riches, and we're real excited to be working on his movie and partnering up with David Yates as a director, or as a producer rather, not director, producer, and with his track record with the Dolphin Tale 1, Dolphin Tale 2, and the Clearwater Marine Aquarium, just a tremendous economic impact that movie had. Can you expound a little bit about the impact of these movies and how that can really change the landscape?
Oh, the impacts there's a huge level of impact that some of these movies can provide. Normally, when we approach impact studies, what we do is we look at what's called a static analysis. And that means we're looking at what's the direct cash injection.
Okay.
And usually from there, we can kind of gather what the total impact's going to be in terms of jobs created, in terms of income produced, in terms of GDP that's going to be added to the local area. So when you look at a movie, let's say you spend, $100 million on a production, you're going to be talking close to $200 to $300 million in economic impact that's going to filter out. And you're going to be talking tens of thousands of jobs. Then you get the extra ancillary benefits, things like tourism. Tourism is going to flow into an area because you have a lot of people across the state, and the movie has large enough reach across the world that are going to see these areas, and they're going to say, hey, I want to go there. I want to go sit at the beach. I want to go see the aquarium where the dolphins housed, and go from there. Yeah. So they have huge economic benefits in the area.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Dolphin Tale was huge as well because it was spanned over a certain amount of time. You had big name actors as well. Harry Connick Jr., I think it was Winona Judd or Naomi Judd, one of the Judd sisters or daughter there. And then you had Morgan Freeman. I mean, just when you have those big names involved too, it really helps add that allure. It's
a real good marketing platform for the area.
Right.
And between that, and it just attracts so many dollars. If you get, let's say, 20% of the visitors to Florida come here for movies, and if you can steer that 20%, for example, this year we have about 130 million visitors statewide that are coming here. If you grow 20% of those, so let's say 20 to 30 million people, If you increase that by 5%, you're talking another 2-3 million people. Well, that's 10%, but you're talking some heavy numbers.
Right.
And then, each one of those individuals are going to spend $3,000 on average per person.
Right.
Because it's not cheap to come here.
Right.
And that, for the local community, is a huge boom.
Yeah.
And it's just really good.
Now, what are the politics behind this? It seems obviously, if you look straight like Hollywood, of course that leans a lot less, more liberal and those types of leanings. But what about in Tallahassee? How do they look at the movie industry? I know over the last few years too, Atlanta, Georgia's been seen as like a hotbed. I think they did some reorganization up there to attract people like Tyler Perry, and I know he's doing a lot up there with TV shows and movies.
Well, originally we had a tax credit in the state. If you go back about 20 years, Florida was a top 3 to 5 film location.
Okay.
And it's always been like that going back to the 1920s and 30s because Florida's always had a very exotic allure. And when you fast forward to 2016, we had a tax credit that expired. It was a sales tax, and you had a certain percent of whatever you spent here, you got as a credit. And they allowed when I say they, I mean the legislature, they allowed that credit to expire, and the thinking was that Florida had a lot of natural advantages that would keep the film industry coming here. Well, then Georgia had a counter credit. They offered 20% sales tax credit, and if you use their logo, I think you get an additional 10%. So you get a total of 30% of whatever you're filming back to the production. Wow. And that's enough to counter any kind of environment we have down here. Especially when I can go to Georgia, film the movie, and then take a picture of Florida skyline and pretend the movie was filmed in Florida.
Right.
When in reality, it's not. So for a couple years, it was the legislature was pretty cold to any kind of new credit coming into place. That started to change in the past few years, where now they're saying, hey, look, Georgia's beating us. This is a major industry. These are high-paying jobs.
Right.
These bring a ton. It's great for marketing the state, which is great for our tourism. And tourism is our primary industry here.
Right.
So recent years, they've started to approach saying, okay, we might need something. And my company worked on a bill that was tied to a large $500 million investment. You get 20% of that back as a tax credit, and it's every $500 million. So if you make $1 billion investment, you're going to get $200 million back.
Wow.
And we'll see where it goes, but it's going to take some time. But I do think within the next few years, the legislature will be interested in offering incentives to bring the industry back to the state.
Yeah, it seems like it. It seems like it's the right way to go with just everything you mentioned. It all works so well together with the tourism, the different pieces in play, the business growth. Some of those people are going to end up staying here, buying second homes. So you got the real estate involvement, title insurance, mortgage. I mean, it just kind of flows down from that space. We're talking with Jared Parker here on the Consumer Quarterback Show. He's an economic consultant, and his consulting group is Regional Economic Consulting Group. I'm your host, Brandon Rhymes, top real estate agent here in Tampa Bay, Keller Williams Realty, and talking about the economic impacts here of the movie industry and movie and TV. And so Capt Will Smith wrote his book, Falling from the Sky. Just a really cool movie with lots of interesting scenes. And then I know he's been doing a lot as well, working with the Bohemian government, helping out the folks in the Bahamas, especially after they had that horrible hurricane just last year. I think it was last year or the year before. I'm getting my years mixed up sometimes. But yeah, that storm just kind of stalled over the Bahamas, and we were all like, oh my goodness. But yeah, so they ran some flights down there. He's made some, so that's an interesting play there as well. I think some of the scenes are going to be filmed in the Bahamas, so that's going to be cool to see how that plays out.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk. So movie industry, big stuff. I mean, that's big stuff. We talked a little bit about the state process. Did you want to add anything on as far as the way Tallahassee works and some of the different bills that are coming out?
I mean, there's a few different bills coming out. Obviously the big ones we've been involved with in the movie industry. We actually were also involved with the university study, looking at private colleges. So these are schools like University of Tampa, University of Miami. So these aren't small guys by any means. Yeah. And we helped work with the association, ICUF, Independent Colleges and Universities of Florida, to help measure the impact of what they provide the state. And it was interesting. It was a for a group that spends $6 billion a year, they impact the state to the tune of about $15 billion, provide almost $1 billion in taxes. It was just a really good way to illustrate the importance of large projects, and whether they are movies, whether they're universities, whether they're just basic developments. That's something that we really like to provide, and something that we really like to information we like to create that they can then work with local governments, work with Tallahassee, work with whoever to help the government get behind your own project to support it and help it move forward.
Okay. So, for example, you mentioned like the University of Miami and other independent, University of Tampa is a private independent college. So how do you go about measuring that? It just seems like such an overwhelming task, doesn't it? I mean, it's a lot of information to gather.
Normally what we do is we kind of this particular project, we approached it in about 3 different angles. The first angle, we looked at their actual expenditures. So we look at how the combined group, it's 30 total institutions, and we looked at how much are all these guys spending together, which was about $6 billion, $6 to $7 billion. Then the second angle we approached was, well, how much are their students themselves spending? And so we went through and we figured out, okay, which students matter? Students that are online taking classes from Georgia matter? Well, no. You filter those guys out. Are students in Florida that are living here, that have always lived here, regardless of the university, do they matter as much in terms of an impact to the new impact to the economy? Not necessarily. So we then had to figure out how many students moved to the state that were new money being spent in the state. So we then calculated the numbers of students and how much they're spending on average for things like food, rent, and whatnot. Added all that up, and then the last angle we approached it at was tied to degrees. And we looked at, okay, what is the value of these degrees over the next 30 years?
Interesting.
And so the combination of the university itself was about, the university plus student spending was about $8 billion.
Wow.
Then the economic impact of that was total of about $16 billion, $17 billion, plus the taxes, about $1 billion, $1.2 billion. Then we looked at the degrees, and over 30 years, a single class graduating is going to provide about $30 billion to the economy.
Wow.
So it was a lot of money.
Yeah.
Which is also taxes, and which is great for the local economy.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow. Interesting. Good stuff. Let's take a quick break here. When we come back, more with Jared Parker here, economic consultant on the Consumer Quarterback Show. And we'll be right back here more with our Consumer Advocate Quarterback Show here on the show. And our feel-good story of the day coming up. We got Shaq buys large family a new van, and then he tipped struggling waitress $1,000. Find out more about Shaq and his good deeds here on the Consumer Quarterback Show, consumerqb.com.
Hey, this is Grant Cardone, and you've been listening to the phenomenal Brandon Rhymes, the Consumer Quarterback Show.
To get in touch with Brandon, call 813-917-1894. Online at consumerqb.com.
Dennis Prager here for Brandon and Lindsay Rhymes, owners of the Platinum MVP team at Keller Williams. Buying, selling, investing in real estate, their nationwide Keller Williams network makes them the best team to work with. Sellers, have your property featured live on air, creating multiple offers. Buyers, leverage a unique system that gets your offer accepted, never overlooked. Call or text 813-750-0550, 813-750-0550, or consumerqb.com.
Selling commercial or residential property? Don't leave money on the table. List with the Platinum MVP team at Keller Williams Realty. I'm Brandon Rhymes. Reach me at 813-670-7372 or platinummvpteam.com.
Have you desired more income and more freedom in your life? Now is your time. Keller Williams Realty has just launched our own real estate school, and you can get licensed for free. I'm Brandon Rhymes, host of the Consumer Quarterback Show, owner of the Platinum MVP team at Keller Williams Realty. And for the first 3 people who reach out, I will personally coach you. 813-917-1894. Call or text 813-917-1894. ConsumerQB.com. ConsumerQB.com.
You're listening to the Consumer Quarterback, Brandon Rhymes, cutting through your typical media nonsense and offering you a rational and unbiased perspective on current events and life in Tampa Bay. Online at consumerqb.com.
All right, welcome back. Brandon Rhymes here, Consumer Quarterback Show, powered by the Platinum MVP team at Keller Williams Realty. We'd like to tell you about our real estate listings, and we've got a hot property listing here at 14626 Loridon Drive. This is number 14. It's $1 million listing of ours, just over $1 million. A great opportunity. You're on a private peninsula. you've got a great opportunity to own real estate here in Tampa Bay. Now, this property on Loridon is listed at $1.495 million. You got your private boat dock and just a great opportunity to own real estate. You got access to the beaches. You got the canals that take you right over to the beaches. If you have a Freedom Boat Club membership, of course, that's a lot of fun to enjoy out there as well. So this property at 14626 Loridon Drive, number 14, brand new listing in Seminole, Florida, centrally located in Pinellas County. Great opportunity. You can see all of our listings at platinummvpteam.kw.com. All right, we've got Jared Parker in the house, economic consultant. Regional Economic Consulting Group is his company biz name, and you also got the website regionaleconomicconsulting.com. Mm-hmm. Okay, and so let's move on. We talked about the movie industry. That's cool, and the state processes and some of the bills, but also affordable housing is a big issue right now. You know, we just, in yesterday's show, we talked about the flock to the red states. It was the top 10 states that people are moving to, which are the common, you hear about Texas, Florida, Arizona, North Carolina, Georgia, Utah, and Tennessee. The top states that people are moving from: California, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, and Illinois. So in Florida, of course, the topic comes up often is affordable housing. Especially I feel for the middle class. I'm always talking about the middle class, how the middle class is getting beat up, and how the coronavirus and the Chinese virus all kind of really. A lot of the stuff impacted the middle class more so, without going down too much of a bunny trail there. But when you look at affordable housing, what an important part that we really need to tackle as a community.
Yes, as you just said, with the population coming into Florida, that right now we have about 22 million people in the state. Their projections by 2030 is they're looking at anywhere from 24 to 30 million people, which is a large range, but it's also because we've seen such huge levels of growth in the past couple of years. So one of the ways that the state could address it, and the Florida Housing Association actually approached us last year to help them get funding for their Sadowski Housing Trust Fund. Mm-hmm. The Sadowski Housing Trust Fund is a fund that's kind of broken down into two different areas. One area is for multifamily development, and the other area is for single-family development. And the single-family development, you're talking elderly that need help with repairs or down payments for houses. And then the multifamily is for low-income, to help incentivize developers to help with their own leveraging, to help the developer get to the leverage through the fund. They can then develop the multifamily unit as long as the multifamily unit has a certain amount of units geared towards low income.
Okay.
And so anyhow, we worked with that. The original fund 2 years ago only received about $30 million, and that was tied to Hurricane Michael funding and hurricane stress counties. So it was very, very limited. And then last year, again, the association came to us. We helped them go from that 30 million or so to about 200 million. So we helped a huge boost in the funding, and it's statewide. And
wow.
It's a program. It's broken down into what's called SHIP and SAIL. The SAIL program is coordinated by the counties. You kind of approach Hillsborough and you say, hey, I have this is my criteria. Do I meet what you need to receive funding to help with the down payment on my home? And the same thing with the developer. The developer approaches the state, and they sit there and say, hey, look, this is what I'm building. This is what it looks like. It meets these three pieces. Can I have help with my down payment?
Nice.
Or my the seed money for leverage.
The seed money for leverage. So you're
right.
so SHIP. I heard of. I feel like I've heard of that one. That's if you hit the certain median incomes or lower. You qualify income wise, and you have that threshold that you hit. Then they give you either like I think it was 10 or 15,000 something. As far as a down payment, and then if you sell in the first 5 years, I think you have to pay it back, something along those lines.
Exactly. They're very. It's basically very almost zero interest loans.
Zero interest loans, yeah.
Right.
So it's basically like a second lien that you never really pay off unless you sell. And then it's like, hey, you didn't stay here. You told us you're going to be here for a while.
Exactly.
And we get it. Circumstances change, things like that. So that's the SHIP program. And SAIL is the one for investors?
SAIL is the one for the investors, yes.
Okay. So that's the one for the folks that are going to develop the land. They're going to buy the land. They're going to take on a lot of risk. Mm-hmm. They're putting their capital up. So they're asking for a small piece or a piece of that down payment to be basically gifted by the government.
Right.
State government.
Right. Yeah, they get the piece, and then they gift it. They receive it from the fund. They then can build their development, and it allows them to take some pretty large leverage too. I mean, the average that we've found with this stuff was 8 to 1. And
Wow.
So that allows a lot to be built.
Explain that leverage for my listeners out there.
It's if I get $1 million, this is going to allow me to take an $8 million loan because it's
Right.
guaranteed $1 million coming from the state.
Right.
You get that. Basically, you get the credit of the state behind your ability to go to receive a loan.
Yeah, so if I'm a lending institution, I say, wow, these guys are pretty solid. Not only do they have a really good track record of professionals involved with it on their board of directors, so to speak, but they also have the state of Florida behind with this 5%, 10% down payment, et cetera.
Exactly.
Yeah. Pretty here on the Consumer Quarterback Show. I'm your host, Brandon Rhymes, and when we talk about affordable housing, that's another area too. One of my passions. One thing we're looking to set up right now with Capt Will Smith and Thomas Younk, Cons Helping Cons, and putting together the pieces, because Thomas has done a lot of work helping these prisoners coming out of the systems, helping reduce the recidivism rate, which when I first heard that word, I was like, what does that mean? So in essence, people coming out of prison, not going right back into prison, coming a burden on the state again, and of course draining the resources that you sometimes see. But this fits right hand in hand with that, because he talks about mentorship. Both him and Capt Will talk about mentorship. They talk about wanting to hear it from somebody who's been there, who's been in prison, been in their shoes. But yeah, so the big part is housing and jobs, right?
Right.
Housing and jobs. So if we can figure out a scenario to play out to help these folks, then I think that's going to be a win-win.
Yeah, and that's what economic development is important for. You sit there and you get the counties and the cities to create a way to attract business to the local area. You attract the businesses bring the jobs.
Right.
And that helps so many different ways. It has such huge ripple effects that affect every walk of life in Tampa. I mean, look at Tampa, for example, where we were 20 years ago and where we are now.
Right.
That's because of the investment that's flown in here and really helped build the industries up. And once the industries get up, then, everyone makes more money.
Right. And there's jobs, you got the economic side, and then helping with these prisoners, finding jobs for them. That's one of the challenges too. But putting these container ships, I got some calls into some folks down in Manatee County that Captain Matt Bruce put me in touch with, and so I'm kind of putting these pieces together, and it's a fun journey. And I've been involved with other organizations that are similar, like Warwick Dunn Charities. He's been on our show several times over the years. Warwick Dunn, one of the NFL Walter Payton Man of the Year, Buccaneer, Atlanta Falcon, and he's actually part owner of the Falcons now. But I think he's helped close to 200 families now with his program, Homes for the Heroes, and it was all based on his mother. But yeah, housing is such a central part of not only the state, the company, but the family growing together.
Absolutely.
And being a force for good. So instead of having that renter's mentality, a lot of times people, if they can get into home ownership, that really helps them have that self-pride, help develop that healthy self-image that's going to help them be that much more successful in life. But we got about a minute left, Jared. Final thoughts. Back to you. How can people find you as well?
You can find us through our website, again, www.regional economic consult list of services that we can offer. Again, we do policy, but we also do economic development and housing. And, if you have a project that you need help with local government or investor relations, just come to us and we can put your project into numbers and help sell that to other people.
Nice. Help quantitate that data. Here's what it would look like, and then take it to the county, the city, the municipality, et cetera, the state.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
statistical validation.
There you go. I like that. All right. Good stuff. Jared, thanks for coming in.
Oh, thank you.
All right, my pleasure. And Jared Parker, check him out online, regionaleconomicconsulting.com. And we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk to a candidate, Amanda Makki. She is a candidate for U.S. Congress District 13, local district here in Tampa Bay, and talk to her about what she sees as some of her issues, top issues for moving forward. Immigration, inflation, probably going to be a big topic, to name a few, here on the Consumer Quarterback Show. We're taking a quick break. We'll be right back here on the Consumer Quarterback Show, consumerqb.com.
This is Chris Voss, former FBI lead hostage negotiator and owner of the Black Swan Group, and you're listening to Consumer Quarterback Show, hosted by my friend Brandon Rhymes.
To get in touch with Brandon, call 813-917-1894. Online at consumerqb.com.
Yes, she sounds great.
Sure.
Some of those, I think those are probably the two
And
biggest.
if you want to, you can put on the headphones.
Yeah.
Oh, you got them already. All right.
Yep.
Amanda, can you hear me?
I can.
Five, four, three, two, one. You're listening to The Consumer Quarterback, Brandon Rhymes, online at consumerqb.com. Brandon is Tampa Bay's #1 consumer advocate for real estate and financial advice. Call Brandon today at 813-917-1894.
All right, welcome back to the Consumer Quarterback Show. I'm your host, Brandon Rhymes. As you know, I'm a top 1% ranked real estate team here in Tampa Bay. My wife, Lindsay, and I own a top team here in the market. We love to help our sellers profit more and sell faster, utilizing our innovations with radio, TV, and internet marketing. We've got a hot property listing, $1 million listing here at 14626 Loridon Drive, number 14 here in Seminole, Florida. Pinellas County, waterfront, beautiful home. It sits on its own private, basically almost an island. It's a peninsula here. It's raised up about 12 feet. But check out the beautiful photography online and the drone videos that we put together from Fabre Frameworks, the award-winning real estate photography company that we work with. You got 2-bedroom, 3-bath, 1,330 square feet, double master layout, waterfront dock home, fast access to the Gulf, 5 minutes to Indian Shores and Indian Rocks beaches, 180-degree views of the Intercoastal Waterway right here in beautiful Tampa Bay. HOA covers the heated pool, tennis courts, landscaping, water, and trash. 14626 Loridon Drive, number 14 in Seminole. And this is a gorgeous real estate property listing. And you can see all of our real estate listings at platinummvpteam.kw.com.
This is God's country.
All right, so we have Amanda Makki in the house. Welcome in, Amanda.
Thanks for having me, Brandon.
My pleasure. All right, so you are a candidate for U.S. Congress, Florida District 13, and let's start a little bit with your background. Kind of introduce yourself. I think you said you were an attorney in your past, or currently an attorney still.
I guess you're always an attorney. Once an attorney, always an attorney.
Exactly.
Well, thank you for having me on the show. I think it's really important for people to know who they're voting for, because so many people don't even know the names of their members of Congress or state reps or mayors. So thanks for the opportunity to talk about that. So my story is a little different. I was born in Iran. My family and I, we fled in 1979 when the revolution happened. And one day my father, who was very politically active against the Ayatollah, woke up and saw on the front cover of the major newspaper in the country his picture. And he knew, time to go. And I better go quickly. Because in that country, if they get you, they don't kill you. They torture you, then they kill you.
Wow.
And so this is a 26-year-old man with an 11-month-old baby, me, and a young wife, and they fled. And we came here as refugees. Came to the United States, sought political asylum, waited our turn. My father was a surgeon in Iran, couldn't get a job as a busboy here.
Wow.
Why? Because there was so much anti-sentiment when the hostages were taken, and it was a very tense time, and understandably so. But that's what we fled.
Yep.
And my father couldn't get a job as a busboy. My mom delivered yellow pages, put him through school. Eventually, he became a surgeon. He's a surgeon to this day.
Cool.
And it's really the story of the American dream.
Yeah.
And that's what America's about.
Yeah.
It's about the American dream. It's about entrepreneurship. It's about people working hard. It's about not having limits because of your last name or how you grew up, or if you grew up poor. We don't have a caste system here.
Right.
And that's what makes America wonderful. But what's happening right now with our government, where we're incentivizing people to sit at home.
Yep.
And we can't get people to work. I've never seen anything like this in my 43 years on Earth. I've never seen anything like this. In fact, they talk about how people who leave communism, they say, look at these shelves, they're empty. You'll never see that again because we're going to countries where you won't see that. Well, guess what? It's happening in America now.
Yep.
that's what's scary. So that's a little bit about my background. My first job was in the Pentagon just weeks after 9/11. I'm a native Farsi speaker, obviously a very important language that is spoken in Afghanistan and Iran. Worked in the Pentagon, went on from there to become an attorney, worked on Capitol Hill trying to stop Obamacare. Due to my personal connection to diabetes, I worked for a diabetes company and set up diabetes prevention programs throughout the country. And lastly, I was a partner in a very large law firm and thought, you know what, this country's worth fighting for. I gave up my career to do this, to make sure we have good messengers in the Republican Party. I feel like we kind of struggle with good messengers.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And we got, a great governor in the state. We got a lot of good things going for us. It seems like there is still a lot of political infighting, though, between, these so-called rhinos and then the MAGA, just like it's interesting to see because I almost ran for county commission. So I was kind of digging in, getting a little bit, entrenched and opted not to. We just had a baby. So my wife and I we've got a 7-week-old now. So
congratulations.
Thank you.
That's really little.
Oh, I know. It's such a fun time. But so thank you for your stepping out and putting yourself, because that's a big step. Just I was thinking about doing it here on a local level, and I was like, wow, I'm interviewing with different people, talking to Chris Sproles and some of these people. They're saying, hey, get ready, it's going to be a tough fight, and you're going to get attacked by certain people and. But
it's not just you, it's your family, it's anyone who's ever associated with you. It's very hard. And it's why you see a lot of people just say, nope, not for me. I'll not do this.
Right.
But what's been really interesting is to see how many mama bears out there are running for school board and running and stepping up for those local offices where we really didn't have women come out for these local offices in droves the way they are now. But when you're teaching junk science in school and you're teaching race-based theories like critical race theory in school, you're going to get moms that are going to say, you know what, I'll give up my career to do this.
Yeah.
And so I always say it's a very tough decision to make because it's a decision that affects everyone around you.
Yeah.
But sometimes people, especially right now with what they're seeing, they're just jumping out in full force to make sure their kids aren't tainted because the children's minds are learning. They're like a sponge. They're absorbing.
Exactly.
And what are they teaching in our schools? Thankfully, Governor DeSantis put a stop to critical race theory. But what about the children all across the country who are having to learn race-based teachings? It's wrong.
It's the exact opposite of what Dr. Martin Luther King taught. Character, not the color of the skin, content of the character. It's just really asinine and it's ridiculous. And there's so many negative adjectives that we could use to throw at it. And then you try to get into the mindset of how the left thought this would actually go, right? How did they really think it would go? And you see it happening in New York and certain areas. They're all the majority of those folks in that state. Unfortunately, we don't see eye to eye, to put it the least. But I think they're very to look at it from a perspective of the overwhelming majority of people believe that it is the content of the character, not the color of the skin, right? And like you said earlier, not judging on the last name. So I think they're a small percentage, but they control a lot of levers of government. They control levers in media.
In urban
can you talk
cities.
about that? Yes, exactly.
Absolutely. I mean, look, I wrote a piece on critical race theory that the Washington Times published last May. And I talk about how, I was in AP chemistry, which is the highest level of chemistry you can take in high school. So I worked very hard to achieve that. And so did an African-American gentleman. He also happened to be a very successful athlete. All-state, ended up playing for 10 years in the NFL, played in college in the NFL. And this is someone who also was in AP chemistry. Yet, critical race theory says what? Your skin predetermines that you should not have to be even considered for this because it's unfair to you.
Yeah.
It is unfair that we would teach this because you're going to fail at it.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? He was not only successful academically, he was successful physically and in athletics. Who is the school board? Who is the government to say, we're not going to teach that because it is racist against Hispanics. It is racist against Black people. Last time I checked, we have brain surgeons, we have engineers, we have talent that is Black, that is Asian, that is Hispanic, that is all colors.
Yeah.
And for them to teach this, and even to give children flesh-colored crayons so that they know that they're privileged because their color is shades lighter than others, is awful. To put them in a line and say, oh, do you live in a 4-bedroom house? Then you move 2 steps forward. You live in a 1-bedroom house, move 4 steps backwards. Why should children even be teaching that? In the America that you and I grew up in, that would have never happened.
Yeah, you would hear about communism, you'd hear about it, and you'd watch Rocky IV with Sylvester Stallone beating up on the Russian, and you get happy about it. These days, some of these people, I don't think they'd get happy. They'd say, "Oh, well, he shouldn't be beating up on the Russian." But
it's not the real world. Your 7-week-old should know that the real world is going to be tough, and everyone getting a medal and everyone getting a trophy isn't the real world.
That's right. Absolutely. We're talking with Amanda Makki, candidate for Florida District 13 here on the Consumer Quarterback Show. I'm your host, Brandon Rhymes. A lot of things to cover. So, immigration is such a big part. The southern border being open, drugs flying over. I just interviewed yesterday's show. We had U.S. Institute Against Human Trafficking, John Long, on the program, and he was talking about some of the statistics, some of the numbers. But, just the southern border being blatantly just ignored by this current regime. I call it a regime, illegitimate regime at that. Pretty crazy.
So I'll tell you this. I'm the only candidate in my race that has been to the southern border. I went to the border and interviewed a Democrat sheriff. And I asked him, I went about 2 weeks after Kamala Harris did. Remember when she supposedly went to the southern border, when she went to El Paso?
Yeah, she did.
A fortified border, wall built, Customs and Border Patrol agents everywhere. And she said, "Hey, I'm at the border," which is just baloney. And I asked this Democrat sheriff, I said, "Why did she say she went to the border?" He said, "She didn't." I said, "Why isn't she here where you and I are standing, where the wall is completely undone?"
Exactly.
There's still 4 miles left to be built. There's material sitting. All the materials paid for. The vendor has been paid for. Yet this wall is open. I can walk right across, basically a jungle gym.
Yep.
I mean, I could climb across it. And when I asked him, he said because she doesn't want to see the problem that she has to fix.
Right.
That is what is happening with our government. She is the border czar.
Yeah.
But she's nowhere near the border. She is not actually seeing the problems that are happening. And right now, the way that I view our country, this is an open border country right now. It is a lawless country where people are allowed to come through. And then what the sheriff said is, we have them here. We don't know what to do. We try to get them a bus ticket to get out.
Yeah.
And for someone like myself who legally immigrated, we waited 15 years to become citizens. It's deeply insulting and what a slap in the face to those Americans who legally immigrated here and waited their turn.
Yeah, it's a slap in the face to a lot of people. The people that were getting locked down, lost their jobs, put on the face diaper, you can't come in, those types of things. But they're not focused on the southern border with that. They're flying late night flights all over the place. Project Veritas has done a great job with exposing a lot of these different just political craziness, really. And they want the border open. Inflation is another one. We got to take a quick break, but I want to ask you about, inflation and just the tax on the middle class is just killing a lot of people. Coming up more with Amanda Makki here on the Consumer Quarterback Show, candidate District 13, Florida District 13 here on the Consumer Quarterback Show. Plus our feel-good story of the day, Shaq buys large family a new van, then tips struggling waitress $1,000. We'll be right back here on the Consumer Quarterback Show, consumerqb.com.
This is Warwick Doan, and you're listening to the Real Estate Quarterback Show hosted by my man, Brandon Rhymes.
To get in touch with Brandon, call 813-917-1894. Online at consumerqb.com.
Hey, Brandon Rhymes here. We are looking for real estate investors. We've got a new relationship bringing us a tremendous amount of off-market real estate investment opportunities. So text the word investor to our hotline, 813-750-0550. Off-market real estate investment opportunities. Text investor to 813-750-0550. Brandon Rhymes here, Platinum MVP team at Keller Williams Realty, looking for real estate investors. Send us a text. Looking for a venue to host your next business or family event? Make it Largo Event Center. The Consumer Quarterback Show has used the Largo Event Center, and the hall and service you get is fantastic. Over 8,500 square feet of meeting space, perfect for events, expos, and trade shows. Upstairs offers space for smaller meetings and groups to include use of their lounge and game room. Plenty of room outside for car shows or food truck events and concerts. Largo Event Center is just west of US 19 on 126th Avenue. For booking and details, visit largoeventcenter.com. That's largoeventcenter.com. Or call Guy at 727-776-3442.
You're listening to the Consumer Quarterback, Brandon Rhymes, cutting through your typical media nonsense and offering you a rational and unbiased perspective on current events and life in Tampa Bay. Online at consumerqb.com.
All right, welcome back. Brandon Rhymes here, Consumer Quarterback Show. Every day we like to tell you something good on our show and a positive, little positive story for you.
Tell me something good.
So NBA legend Shaquille O'Neal performed a series of good deeds this week, including a surprise visit with a family of 11. Carissa Collins and her husband have 9 children, and her popular Instagram, The Collins Kids, has more than 350,000 followers. She wrote that Shaq surprised her family, took them to dinner, bought them a couple of much-needed vehicles. She says, "I have no words right now. Today, Shaq blessed us like never before, like literally no words," she wrote, end quote. And she took them out to dinner. Shaq took him out to dinner, eating dinner with the family at Babe's Chicken. And then he took us over to a Mercedes dealership, bought a new family 15-passenger van. So they got the sounds like a Sprinter van, one of the Sprinters. They had outgrown their 12-passenger van. And then he also took them to dinner at the Rainforest Cafe, where he paid for another table's entire meal, not knowing that they were from out of state and here on missions. And then he also tipped the waitress $1,000 when her car broke down. And they also went to the Ford dealership because the husband's truck had been without air conditioning and heat for a while. So he took them to the Ford dealership and blessed them with another truck. And she quoted as saying, "Thank you, Shaq, times a million." So there's your feel-good story of the day. We got Amanda Makki in the house here, running for District 13, Florida District 13, U.S. Congress. So yeah, let's jump into inflation. Inflation is considered as a tax on the poor. It helps the wealthy. It helps a lot of the elites, and that's really what we've got going on here in this country. We've got a party, an entrenched, call it a deep state, administrative state, whatever you want to call it. Those folks have been put in place over the Clinton campaigns, the Obama administrations, rather, and then, of course, a lot of them fought Trump tooth and nail, and he still got so much done during his 4 years as president of the United States.
Well, inflation is a very scary thing because so many people live on a fixed income, and our immediate reaction is, well, yeah, the little old lady who is retired and lives on that fixed income. Well, yeah, but to your point, so did the middle class.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not getting a bigger paycheck because the price of milk went up 40%.
Right.
And so this absolutely is a tax. But you talked about this earlier in the segment. You talked about housing. Yeah. And think about how many veterans live in Pinellas County, where I'm running. Just this area has a lot of veterans, whether it's Hillsborough or Pinellas. How can they afford when the price of rent has gone up 20% over the last year?
Yeah,
and so the inflation is the highest of anywhere in the country in this metropolitan area of Tampa Bay.
Good point. Yeah.
It has gone up the most in a 12-month period. And certainly the incomes have not kept up to pace with that. Right. And that's what's scary, is that people are having to rely on a fixed income to continue to try to live when the price of everything has gone up double digits.
Right.
Go to your shelves in the supermarket, as I said, and they're not stocked. People can't get things anymore. Things are limited. We're having a vigil tonight for the people of Ukraine.
Yep.
And I went to buy candles. We don't have candles right now.
Jeez.
I went to Target, went to Michael's, I went to Walmart.
Wow.
There are no candles. And so it's not only just the difficulties of the cost of everything, it's also the lack of things in the market that we used to have. In 13 months of Joe Biden, look where our country has gone.
Yeah.
We've gone from being a state with a country with a wall and the continuation of the wall to stopping the wall.
Yep.
We had the Keystone XL pipeline. That stopped. And immediately, what happened? It was predictable. Gas prices went up, and they continue to go up. I drive a diesel. Diesel's at $4 right now.
Let me interject, because I just heard something very cool from Dennis Prager, who's a staple on our station here, 860. Sure. Yeah, I was listening to Steve Bannon's podcast. Dennis Prager came on, and he said he was going through the different fallacies of the left, basically. And he said the biggest thing that the left always says is about the environment, right? And they go right to fossil fuels, want to beat up on fossil fuels. So Dennis was saying something to the effect that, well, why not go nuclear then? Nuclear is clean, but they don't want to do that. They want to talk about windmill farms, and they want to talk about all these other things, sea level rise, but they still buy the oceanfront properties.
Yes.
But they're cut off our oil to, But yeah.
Well, I mean, I remember John Kerry. I mean, John Kerry is the biggest culprit here. I mean, he travels on a private jet, and yet he complains about, green technology and green energy and how we're polluting the air. Well, you're doing it, dude.
Yeah.
And so I think that really when you look at what the left is doing, they're just pandering to the progressive base of their party.
Right.
Because who funds this party? George Soros does.
Yeah.
So they just kowtow to whatever George Soros is pandering. And what's so fascinating is that George Soros has gotten involved in so many local races now.
Yeah.
And so when you think about like the sheriff's race in Pinellas County last year, or DA's races, state's attorney's races, why is he getting involved in a Pinellas County state's attorney's race?
Yep.
Because if you can get people to not prosecute, as we're seeing in California, as we're seeing in New York, then you basically defund the police without defunding the police.
Right.
So that's how they're doing it.
You undermine the whole system of checks and balances, of rules
Absolutely.
and laws and law of order. So, yeah, he's doing that. What about locally in Pinellas? What's some of our biggest issues? We've got about 3 minutes left.
Okay. I would say, one thing I hear over and over, and it's great because I'm totally on board with this and always have been from my days of working in Congress, term limits. Yeah. I think term limits are hugely important. I think it is important because it signifies confidence to people that you're not going there to just get rich off of being a politician.
Love it.
You're going there to actually do something, lead, do what's right, and get out.
All right.
And I 100% agree with this. There was a senator when I worked in Congress, and his name was Tom Coburn. He's about the only person who ever lived up to the term limit pledge that he had, which was 2 terms, and he got out. And I think that would restore a lot of confidence. And he would always say it's there's 20% of Americans that agree they support what Congress is doing. The 20% must be our family members, right? Because who really thinks that? So I think term limits is really important. Inflation, certainly inflation, getting people back to work, that's really important.
Yeah.
Red tide hit the district, hit the county pretty badly this summer.
Yep.
So making sure that we have measures in place for red tide. I mean, you ask people and they're like, I don't know what red tide is caused by. We're spending millions of dollars. The government is studying this, but yet we have no answers for people.
Yeah.
I think that's also important. But the wall is important too. People want to know that they're secure, that this country is secure, because it may be happening in Texas, but guess where they're coming? According to Ron DeSantis, 70% of them are coming to Florida. Why? Go to the interior of a state. It's all agriculture, and there's jobs.
Right. Yeah, a lot of orange groves. I grew up in a small town
Cattle.
called LaBelle down in Hendry
LaBelle?
County.
Yep.
Small country town. A lot
Arcadia. I mean, that's where they're going. So these are the types of things that worry people. But I think the biggest driver right now is the cost of your home, the cost of rent, the cost of fuel, the cost of groceries. That's what's worrying people.
And real quick, too, when you think about the hedge funds that are buying inventory, you think about Blackstone, BlackRock, Larry Fink, you think about the ESG scores that basically is a short way around. It's a quick way around environmental, social, and governments. So they're basically putting in the green new policies, the wokeism into those companies. They're coming in, buying up our inventory, paying cash, turning around, rent it back to you and I as middle class citizens again. So it's a frustration for a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the corporate America has gone woke, and we saw that with the All-Star game for baseball last year, and it just continues to happen. So it would be really good to have a check and balance on our government, which we don't have right now. So my hope is that we win back this Pinellas seat. I will be representing hopefully next year and be able to really stop Biden and stop Soros and the Democrat machine from continuing to control our country, which is what they're doing right now.
I like it. That sounds good. How can folks find you and support you?
Amanda Makki, MAKKI.com. Contributions are always welcome. Sign up on my Facebook page, Amanda Makki for Congress. And Instagram and Twitter, same thing.
Awesome. Amanda Makki, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work. All right, we want you to please go out there and consider committing a random act of kindness. Do something kind for one another. Be a force for good in the community. And we'll see you next time right here on the Consumer Quarterback Show, consumerqb.com.
You've been listening to The Consumer Quarterback, Brandon Rhymes. Whether it's real estate, consumer, or financial advice, let Brandon call your next play. Call Brandon Rhymes at 813-917-1894. That's 813-917-1894. Online at consumerqb.com. And join us next time for the Consumer Quarterback Show.